it'll be under different protocols, but we should all be back at City Hall, social distancing, and I believe we all have to wear masks, but at least we'll be all together at that point in time. I also wanted to say to the department heads that I know after discussion with the mayor and other members of council, we kind of gave a new kind of budget outlook and kind of the requests that we would like to see regarding a reduction in the budget by 10%. And again, this is a precautionary measure so we can see how the income tax collections go throughout the year. And if the income tax collections stay steady and don't decrease, of course, the budgets will be modified as throughout the year to add more money back. But we just want to play it safe because I've known from reading a lot of articles and watching a lot of the news channels, a lot of the cities are going to be in financial straits and they're going to have to start laying off people. Probably not so much this year, but next year for sure. So we're just trying to plan ahead for the next couple of years to make sure that the impact, which we have no idea what that impact is going to be, we prepare for that. And I'd rather be a little bit more conservative at the beginning and add money back than coming back to each department head asking them to figure out who they can furlough or lay off. I don't think that we want to try to go that route. We've done a great job so far with our finances and we have monies available, but those monies aren't going to last forever. And if they're depleted, it takes a while to reinstate those monies and we don't know what the future holds. So I think everybody on council, after talking with them, kind of agreed that we want to take a conservative approach to budgeting, at least for this year, to keep an eye on the income tax collections. With that said, we have assignment for requests for council actions. We have 2086 MC McDack grant application for the police, 2087 CHIP private rehab for 533 South Broadway, 2088 economic development Trex transfer form approval, 2089 expenditure of 15,000 Littman Inc. engineering, 2090 expenditure of 15,000 Stepmobile Municipal Court, and 2091 budget amendments. The next item we have is 2085. This is an addendum that Councilwoman Hazeltine put together for pandemic relief for seniors and at-risk city residents. So, Mrs. Hazeltine, if you could give us an update.
You're muted, Jess.
You're muted. You got to unmute yourself.
I'm playing with a couple different screens here, so bear with me. Let me pull the one I want up.
You're good now.
You're good.
Okay. Come on. Okay, so after I reflected on the comments from our last Finance Committee meeting, and I talked with some Medina City residents, some different nonprofits, and the at-risk population that we spoke about, I put together this proposal. I spoke with Tim Van Arsdale, the executive director and founder of the nonprofit Cups Cafe, and I think this would be an ideal organization for us to donate city funds to. My thoughts are that we give a total of $5,000 dispersed in $2,500 increments, and the funds would be used for food, carry-out containers, bags, and other supplies that the organization previously didn't budget for, as people use the cafe and regular dishes to eat. So there is employment available in Medina. So after thinking about that, this money will not be used to employ drivers. It will simply be used to pay for those supplies that they need. Currently, Cups Cafe serves 120 meals per day, Monday through Friday, and 40 on Saturdays because of limited hours. 95 of those are those deliveries that we talked about to the at-risk population. So my proposal is that we do give them the $5,000 in increments of $2,500 with the stipulation that it only be spent on the stipulated items as I just discussed.
And how will it be tracked?
Tim actually is going to track it. He's offered to open a separate bank account just to track those funds. Generally, because of the nature of his business and the clientele that he services, he really doesn't service anyone outside of Medina City. If he does get calls from outside of Medina City, they're usually for things like assistance with housing and stuff like that, which is not affected by this donation to their organization.
And when you're saying up to 5,000, I thought we talked about it would be like a $2,500 initial one to keep track of it. And that they comply with, making sure that the city residents, and I think when you say at risk, are you talking seniors and children, right? I mean, what do you mean when you say
Seniors
that?
and children. So it would be food insecure and senior citizens and anyone else that fell under the category of at risk as outlined by Dr. Amy Acton.
Okay. All right. I mean, I like it a lot more than last time. Again, I was a little concerned about paying somebody money to do the volunteer work, that there's a lot of volunteers and a lot of help out there to do that. But it sounds like as long as we can track it and you're going to help the people who need it most, I mean, that's what we'd like to do. And it sounds like food, in my mind, is one of the most important things to help people on at this point in time. And we also talked about the water bills, if everybody remembers, and I think that's still on the table. We just have to have a discussion of how we handle that, who applies for that or who's eligible for that. Because again, we have a mixture of people who are chronically late and under water bills, but then we have a new group of people who are late this time because of either unemployment related to the virus and things of that type. So we have to look at that. But I believe we appropriated it up to 25,000, and this will be 5,000 of that. So there's other areas, and that's probably a good area to look at in the future, is to figure out how do we reimburse people for things that they can't pay for just because they don't have any money because they lost their job. Does anybody have any questions for Jess or any comments?
I do, John.
Oh,
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Okay, Jess, thank you for doing this work. I agree with John. It does go a lot further now than previously. I just have a couple of questions. Before the lockdown, how many meals per day were being served?
That information I did not get from Tim. He can only tell me right now what he is doing. If that's conditional on your vote, if that's something you would need to know, I can get that for you. But I do know.
I think that would help us make a better decision, because then we would know for sure how many are related to the virus, as opposed to the general groups that he does. Because we know he's been helping out the young kids for a few years now, if not longer. I think that would help us. And then I would suggest that keep with the 2,500, but allocate just 2,500 this time. And then when those funds are getting low and it comes time for replenishing, let's review that, see where we are, and see if that's the right number for the next round or if that needs to be adjusted.
I would agree with that part, Mr. Rose, but in reference to the first part of your question, I was able to find out from Mr. Van Arsdale that while he does currently serve 120 people per day, he told me that with additional funding and some extra materials and supplies, they would be able to service upwards of 200 people per day. So right now they're serving 120 with the capacity with help to serve 200, if that's helpful at all.
What is their demand, though? Is their demand just the 120, or is their demand the 200?
Their demand is higher than what they can currently accommodate, hence the need for funding. So when I spoke with him, I did ask him how many more people could you service if you had these funds? And he said they could definitely increase the number to 200 people per day rather than the 120 that they're currently servicing.
and that is backed up, Paul, the article that was in the newspaper from Feeding Medina County, that they have long lines at the fairgrounds and other places. I think that they deliver the food that they don't have enough. And it's a need out there that's growing, and hopefully, especially when people are out of work and out of school, they don't have those meals anymore, especially the kids that they used to have. And I think Mr. Shields knows a lot about that, because those kids need to have meals still because they used to get them from the schools.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt that there's a need. No doubt that there's a need.
I was going to, John, if I could take a minute there too. I do like the idea of maybe doing 25 first, because I've had 3 groups in this past week ask me they want to reach out and help somebody as well. And I told them, let me see what happens with Cups Cafe tonight, because I think that's one where I suggested Feeding Medina County and they were in okay shape financially. I suggested a couple other places. They were all already giving money, but I wanted to get back to these 3 groups and say, council's going to do 25 if you would like to match or give additional money to Cups. So it might take care of the other 2,500, because I know there's still a lot of groups out there who want to help and are looking for ways to help. They're just looking for some direction on how to help.
And Jim, from your experience with the school-age children, my understanding is some of them get their meals from Cups Cafe too. Is that true?
That is true. The ones that are out, they are still going there. We also have the schools are providing food that you can pick up twice a week. Then we're still doing about 300 weekender bags to all the elementary students. That's on a Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday is when they can pick it up at the high school. And then we have some other food pantries that are servicing a lot of our students. But anytime you bring any of these families food, they will tell you it doesn't cover all 7 days of the week for them.
Okay, I understand. And at 2,500, Jess, just a question to follow up on that. If we do the 2,500 first, what do we anticipate would be the length of time that money would last?
That is something I don't know. And that would be something like Mr. Rose said, we'd have to evaluate and see. And that's something I don't even know if they can put a number on right now. But I did want to point out that the differences in services between Feeding Medina County, like Jim said, they are not struggling necessarily financially as much as some other organizations, but they deal in non-perishable food items. So some of their struggles are not that they don't have enough money, it's that they don't have access to the right sizes of non-perishable food items. So say you want peanut butter, they need peanut butter of a certain size, not a giant Costco tub. But when you switch over to these hot meals that are being served by Cups, they're perishable. So they're both meeting two different needs in the community.
Okay, thank you. Denny, you had a question?
Yeah, just a comment, Jess and Bill. Great idea. I think that what you've worked on now, Jess, is going to be more palatable to everybody in Medina. I don't think there's a person in Medina that doesn't feel that there's a need and that we should step up and try to help where we can. I still like the idea of, and John mentioned, researching the water accounts. And there was also a suggestion made, I believe it was by the mayor, to look into the program for the city school, the school district children that Jim's so involved with. I know there's always a need there, and I would support putting some funding towards that too when the time is needed, because we all know. We all hear about horrible stories where people are hungry in Medina, and that shouldn't be. So, Jess, Bill, thanks for your initiative. Jess, thanks for your hard work while Bill's relaxing down south. But no, I support the Cups donation. They do such a phenomenal job, and again, hats off to you guys. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
No, John, I was just going to say, Jess, if you could let Tim know that maybe put it out there that council's giving 2,500, he might be surprised how quickly he gets other donations. We have a food pantry for the Medina County Police Activities League. We're selling $20 t-shirts, and within the first day, 2 people donated $500 for a $20 t-shirt to go to our food pantry. So, and as I say, I've got at least 3 groups I'm going to call back and say, hey, Cups Cafe would be a great place to donate money to. So if Tim can kind of put it out there that if anybody wants to match what the city's doing, I think he'll be surprised. There's some very generous people that want to help right now.
Absolutely. I will definitely tell him that.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get the newspaper to put an article together and maybe mention that in the article that, if they could like to match it, that'll be great. So maybe I don't know where the newspaper people are, but.
Here's looking at you, Bob.
we can do that. Bill, you have a question?
Hey, John. Yeah, 2 things. One is, I think we, really recognize that Jess took the initiative on this in the first place, and then listened to what everybody had to say at the last meeting, and she really did all the legwork, to put this together. And I'd like to see us move on it so that we can see how far the $2,500 does go maybe by the time we come back at the next meeting. But I also think that Jim's, Jim really made a good point. If we can get a matching fund to the $2,500, really in effect doubling the money, I think that's a great suggestion if that can be followed up on and if you can get that out to the public. But, I want to thank Jess for the hard work because she really did the legwork to put this plan together, and her concern for the community was evident.
Thank you,
Thank
Bill.
you.
Anybody else have any comments? Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Are we doing just 2,500 at this point then for Cups Cafe?
Yes.
So move to approve 2,500 to Cups Cafe.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 2086 McDack grant application for the police department. Chief Kinney?
Thank you, Mr. President. Can you hear me?
Barely.
Okay. This is, we're requesting permission to apply for the Medina County Drug Advisory Committee grant for fiscal year 2020 to 2021. This is for 2 school resource officers, one at the Medina High School and one that splits its time between the 2 middle schools. The emergency clause has been requested because the grant is due here in a few days, May 15th. We just got the actual grant application, the final version of the grant application in mid-April. So we are requesting the emergency clause for that. The requested amount is $179,398.
Thank you. Any questions?
John, I just wanted to mention I'm going to abstain. So if Denny could make the motion, because it does involve the 2 officers who are assigned to my employer, Medina City Schools.
Thank you, Jim. Denny?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second with the emergency clause.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Oh, John, abstain. I wanted to abstain on that one too.
Okay, I didn't quite get there yet, but any abstentions? We got one abstention. Okay, 2087, CHIP Private Owner Rehab at 533 South Broadway. Mr. Mendel?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This is to increase an existing approved PO for 533 South Broadway Street, which is this property here in the city of Medina. They're to increase the PO from $33,000 to $37,524. The emergency clause is requested so that we can pay the contractor can be paid as quickly as possible so that they continue to have capital to continue bidding on CHIP projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Is there a motion?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including the emergency clause.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2088 Economic Development Trex Transfer Form for Diner 42. Mrs. Marshall?
Thank you, Mr. President. I've been having conversations with Bill Adams, the owner of Diner 42, and his attorney, Kevin Brennan, on the possibility of transferring a D1, D2, and D3 class liquor permits to the city of Medina for their restaurant. And I think as council is aware, Bill Adams has purchased a couple years ago the site at 665 Lafayette Road, which was the former Lantern establishment. Since then, they've invested over $50,000 in the property, fixing it up. I think council remember it was kind of a blighted building. So they've spent a lot of time fixing it up. They added a large deck on the front of the building. And prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, were employing 6 full-time employees. And despite all their marketing efforts and community outreach, they've seen a slow decline in sales. And basically, they're just not competitive with other casual dining restaurants in the area because of the not being able to offer their customers the different alcoholic beverages. So their request is, or we're requesting council to allow the mayor to sign the attached Department of Commerce Liquor Control Trex transfer form. Their attorney has identified a liquor permit in another jurisdiction, and that would be for D1, D2, and D3. I think Mr. Adams is watching via Facebook Live. I don't know if anyone has any questions for him or myself. We are not requesting the emergency clause. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. I just have one question. I don't know the answer to it. Do we know that in this precinct, do we need to have a vote by any of the public regarding additional liquor permits or liquor permits at this establishment? I mean, because sometimes I see on the ballot that you have to vote to allow liquor to be sold in a precinct. I don't know if that's been looked at or if that's a concern or.
Mr. Coyne?
Yes.
So those are generally where there's Sunday liquor sales and not the other liquor sales. The former establishment before Diner 42 was in fact a bar, the Lantern, and they did have a liquor permit at that point. So I don't see any obstacles with the transfer of this one, sir.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. Any questions by anybody? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2089 expenditure over $15,000 for Littman Inc. Engineering. Is Mr. Patton there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I didn't see you on the thing. Okay.
This is a request, the recent completed South Elmwood Bridge. We do have some grant funds still remaining, and we'd like to apply those and use those to pay for the installation of 2 decorative lights, one on each side of the bridge. The grant will pick up 63% or a little over $10,100 of this amount. The city would then be required to pay just a little less than $6,000 for this.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. President,
Paul?
Patrick, do we have any examples of what this lighting's going to look like?
The light we've planning on installing looks very similar to the historic downtown lights. It's not exactly to the inch the same, but it's very similar to it. I can certainly forward maybe via email an example of it.
Are these the illumination of it? Is it LED or is it sodium or whatever they call it?
It is LED.
Any other questions for Mr. Patton?
The only question I have.
Oh, Denny?
The only question I have is that include? I mean, obviously there's already electric run to that area.
When we built the bridge, we included the internal conduit for the future installation of these lights. So the conduit's there. The electric service from Ohio Edison is going to cost about $900. But once that's done, we'll have power service to it.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2090 expenditure of $15,000 for Stepmobile to Muni Court. Mayor, do you know about this?
Matt is here from the court, sir.
Oh, he is? Okay. Matt?
Good evening, Mr. President. How are you this evening?
Oh, doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. All right. This is part of the 2020 Remote Technology Grant opportunity presented through the Supreme Court and Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor. The Supreme Court announced a special one-time funding opportunity focused on the purchase of the equipment necessary to quickly facilitate remote access for local Ohio courts. The funding opportunity is due to the emergency need caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, and priority will be given to the video conferencing equipment requests. What we've applied for, Mr. President, is actually we have the funds now. It hasn't cost the city of Medina any money. We were awarded $28,614.91 through the Supreme Court to purchase the laptops. We purchased 7 laptops and the case management system that's needed to operate that. OCSS is Ohio Community Supervision System. It's currently in use by 40 different adult probation departments and courts throughout the state of Ohio, with another 35 or so slated to come online. It's an online offender case management software application currently being used by the adult probation departments in Ohio. Cobra Systems is the sole owner of the source code and the intellectual property, and Step Mobile is an affiliate of Cobra Systems who would then implement this case management tool.
Thank you. Just one question I have. Is this able to be accessed, I assume, by a smartphone or a computer?
Exactly, both of those, sir. And what this is doing is it's going to allow us as probation officers to conduct our supervision appointments and to maintain contact with defendants who have been assigned to a period of probation without having them come into our already overcrowded courthouse and stuff. It should reduce the foot traffic tremendously where we can meet and do virtual reporting. There are always going to be some individuals who have to have FaceTime or time in our office. But if we can cut down on the number of appointments that we have to see in the building itself, it's going to not only minimize the exposure risk through community spread of COVID-19, but it should increase our efficiency with, improving the appointments that we can, the opportunities we can meet with our defendants and just ensure they're following through with the sentencing directives of the court.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, Mr. President?
Yes, Paul?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Matt, thank you for bringing this to us. A couple of questions. The first one is, once the pandemic is over, are we going to continue to be using this software?
Largely, that I think is the desire of the Supreme Court and most of the national organizations like the Chief Probation Officers Association and stuff. There's a trend to lessen the footprint of probation in our communities and stuff. And we believe this is going to be one of the items that are on the forefront of, we don't have to have folks come into our office, sit down, meet with us. We should be able to meet with them. And as long as they have either a cell phone or a smartphone or a computer that has a camera and a microphone on it and stuff, we can conduct those appointments. This is huge for folks who may not have driving privileges or don't have reliable transportation. We can increase our success rates and lower the offenders that we have to violate for technical violations. And it should increase, overall success, through any defendant placed on probation.
Okay, very good. Then once the grant is depleted, who will be responsible for maintaining the software and anything else that was provided by the grant?
Sir, it's a very good question. It appears that, once the grant has expired, we'll inherit approximately about an $1,800 per year cost, and that's for systems maintenance and to continue providing service. We're going to, one of the items that the grant provides for is a remote kiosk. The kiosk concept is simple. We could place a device really throughout the county. We're going to be working with the Medina County Adult Probation Department, who already has, I believe, 4 online. So we're going to see if we can share those with them and place these kiosks throughout the community that would increase, the opportunity, for offenders to access the court and receive messages from their probation officer without having to come in. But $1,800 a year appears to be what the cost going forward would be after the first year.
Okay, and then any hardware upgrades and replacements would also be ours down the road. With the laptops that you got a 5 to 7 year lifespan for those. So then we would have to get those into a regular rotation for
Correct.
Upgrade and replacement. Okay.
Correct, sir. We've already purchased 7 laptops. The ones who have been promoted by Ohio Community Supervision Systems is the most user friendly to be able to adopt the system of case management.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any
And
other
again,
questions?
I'd like to stress that Medina hasn't incurred any costs for this and shouldn't.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you.
Thank you,
2091.
Mr. President and City Council.
Okay, thank you. 2091 budget amendment, Mr. Durham?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is to accept some donations and appropriate the money from those donations. It will be used to build a restroom facility at Sam Macy, right, Jensen? Correct.
And this is from the Stevenson Foundation.
And the Miracle League. There's 2 donations here. One's from Stevenson Foundation, the other's from Miracle League.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The last item we have on the agenda is a courthouse update. I'll have the mayor give an update that he has, and then I got to ask questions of council how we're going to proceed, maybe with another meeting. Mayor Hamwell?
Thank you, Mr. President. So what we've received from Gilbane and Branstetter Carroll is a document where they met with our clerk of courts and Judge Warner, as well as the 4 judges and the clerk of courts, as well as the probation head over at Common Pleas. And the initial document is, if everybody could have everything they wanted, what would that space look like, and what would that number look like? Now we're well aware that we need to now do what they call value engineering, and in that we need to get the number both square footage wise as well as cost wise more in the realm of what we've been talking about all along. But initially in the planning process, this is what the construction manager at risk, which is Gilbane, and Branstetter Carroll as the architect, wanted to make sure that they were covering all the requirements and all of the desires of the different participants, then showing them what the cost of that was, and then working back from there to a number that is more realistic and more agreeable to our city council as well as to the 3 county commissioners. So Council President Coyne and I discussed trying to set up a separate meeting with the city council to then go through this along with Judge Warner and elected clerk Nancy Abbott from the city's perspective. In the same respect, Scott Miller and Commissioner Hudson are doing the same thing with their elected officials at the Common Pleas Court. And then each of us independently making recommendations back to Gilbane and Branstetter Carroll as to where we think we can make some adjustments and shrinkage to reduce the square footage and bring the cost down.
Yeah, and going through the documents, and I believe I'm going to have Kathy Patton send everybody a copy of the email that gives the list of the estimated construction costs and design of what the current footprint looks like with everybody's desires. And the one thing that I thought was kind of interesting was the cost per square foot for renovation was a little less, or a third less, than the cost of new construction. And the unknown that is still out there is what, if any, impact will the virus have on the cost of construction in the next 12 to 18 months? We don't know that answer to the question. My hope is that it'll go down because there's going to be a lot of private businesses and even governmental entities that are going to be in financial trouble, that they won't be able to have their construction projects continue, which may offer a competitive advantage to us at this time to build it. But I wanted all members of council to look it over, have a meeting next week. We can have the meeting in person, or as we did today, we had a meeting on Skype, which included a representative from Gilbane and also a representative from Branstetter Carroll. And maybe that's the best way to do it, because that way we can get their input at the same time. And if you wanted to meet in person, you could, or you could just do it over Skype. It seemed to go pretty well today, and with an open questions, exactly what was needed. I had several questions and they answered them, which was great. There is still some discussion that needs to be had regarding the shared common space and the size of the renovation and size of the new construction of the Muni Court. But at least we got a good start. And I just wanted to double check with everybody. I was trying to think about having the meeting either next Monday or next Tuesday. And would everybody rather try to get the Branstetter Carroll and Gilbane on the Skype and phone call? You don't have to do Skype, you can do a phone call. Or would you rather meet in person? What is everybody's pleasure?
I'd rather do Skype.
Well, that's because you're in North Carolina, but I get it.
No, I'm coming home, John.
I'll be home.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
I will be.
Good. Denny, you have a preference?
Yeah, no, this is fine, what we have set up now.
Okay, Jess?
I don't have a preference other than, are we using Skype, Zoom, GoToMeeting, or is that just a matter of semantics?
They use Skype. I don't really care what it is. We evidently I use all the different ones, but I'll ask them whatever they want to use.
If anyone's asking my technological presence, I like Zoom.
Okay.
I'm good with this because then we can ask them directly as opposed to just talking to ourselves, so we can have a little bit of authority in the room to help us answer these questions.
Okay. Paul?
Yeah, I'm good with the remote meeting is fine.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll talk to them about it. You'll get the information, look it over, try to gather your questions together so we can have a productive session. And we'll invite them together with Judge Werner, and if Nancy Abbott wanted to join us, and the mayor. So I think we can have a pretty good discussion.
Are we going for Monday, John?
Monday or Tuesday. What would be better? It doesn't matter to me. Whatever is better for everybody.
Doesn't matter to me, either one.
Okay. Well, I'll have Kathy send out an invite.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mayor?
So I still had the Tuesday ward meeting. That's canceled?
That's correct.
Okay. So
Yeah,
I'm
we
good
can't
either
meet.
one.
We can't meet yet until really May 4th, things start opening up, at least for the offices. So that's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah, this is
all
May
right.
5th.
I'm sorry, Mayor?
It was May 5th, but that's okay.
Oh,
Whatever you prefer.
I didn't want to do a Cinco de Mayo. I didn't know if that was good or bad. So,
Well, then we have to meet in person and serve tacos. So,
okay. Is there anything else to come before the Finance Committee meeting? Hearing nothing, we'll adjourn here until 7:30 when Finance starts. And Jared, I assume you just want us to stay on, or do you want us to log back in?
You guys can stay on. We'll discuss more once we sign off the live here.